Okay, this video is more quotes from my book, Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes. We're going to do a couple quotes from Caldwell Esselstyn. So Caldwell Esselstyn is the great doctor from the Cleveland Clinic. He has the best results of any doctor in the world for the treatment of coronary artery disease. Main cause of death in the Western world is coronary artery disease. Dr. Esselstyn has said, any patient who actually followed his diet, who really followed his diet, he's never seen a single one have a cardiovascular event, meaning a heart attack or a stroke, for example. Okay, he says, no nuts. Okay, that's an important point because there's a lot of people on the internet, especially the high-fat phonies, trying to hype nuts and pretend they're some type of health food. They're 80 to 90% fat, okay? It's not a health food. They also have high in advanced glycation end product, kind of acidic. Okay, Esselstyn, vegan diet with no nuts and no oils is the best diet to reduce the risk of coronary artery disease. And he's got the data to prove it. There's no one else even remotely in his ballpark. The closest thing was like some optimized form of the Mediterranean diet in the Lyon study, and his results were more than 30 times better than that. Okay, I think it was about 178 patients, 198 patients, depending on how you look at the data. And in 4 years follow-up, there was only one patient that had a cardiovascular event, and that patient, he said, didn't follow the diet. He just included it, but he said the patient wasn't following the diet. So anyways, he's very insistent, no oil, not one drop. And that's an important point. A lot of patients have a hard time understanding. And what I would like to say from having looked at lots of patients, their brains, their spines, and all their labs and all their other stuff, most patients don't understand how screwed they are. They're much sicker than they realize. And their typical standard of comparison is, well, at least I'm not as fat as my cousin. And that's the wrong attitude. The proper attitude is, look, most people do not age well. I want to be one of the few who ages well. Therefore, I'm going to do everything right that I possibly can. That's the correct attitude. It's like an alcoholic. You don't tell them you can have a drink on the weekend. You don't drink anymore. Smoker, you don't smoke anymore. If you want to get better, people who just, I'm cutting down, they don't do very well. I just see them. They dwindle and then crash and burn. So you want to be like Essestyn, kind of like Old Testament God. Thou shalt not eat meat. Thou shalt not eat oil. That works. Okay, Caldwell Esselstyn will say, no oil, not one drop, no oil. And he'll repeat that several times to make the point because it's essential. Oil is toxic to your arterial lining. It also causes leaky gut, and you get all that postprandial endotoxemia, amyloid clotting, all that stuff. Moderation kills. Yeah, people try to think socially with medicine. Medicine thinking should be biblical. It should not be social. Social thinking is when in Rome, do as the Romans do, everything in moderation, variety's the spice of life. That's fine for getting along with people. Okay, but for health, you don't do the bad stuff. You only do the good stuff. You can do whatever you want, but I'm just telling you, almost all the patients I ever see over 60 years of age are fat, sick, and stupid. And if you want to be fat, sick, and stupid, you'll have a lot of company. But if you don't want to be fat, sick, and stupid, then you're going to have to make an extra effort, Okay, Dr. Esselstyn continues. He says, I read that plant-eating populations seldom got cancer. He mentioned, I forget the exact number, but it was something like in the late 1950s in the whole country of Japan or something, there was a very minimal number of patients died from prostate cancer. Something like 50 or even low. I don't remember the exact number. I'd have to look it up. But the point I'm saying was remarkably low. Many thousands of patients are dying of prostate cancer in the United States, okay? And he's like, well, gee, that's remarkable. And then he started reading about coronary artery disease in these countries where they eat plant-based diets. He's like, no one's dying of coronary artery disease. This is incredible. It's the most common cause of death in the Western world. Okay, so that kind of got him started studying this study. He eventually came to the conclusion, nitric oxide is the most important vasodilator. Nitric oxide is made by the lining cells of your arteries. Nitric oxide keeps your arteries open. Nitric oxide is the life jacket of your arteries. If a patient just understands they have to protect their nitric oxide in their arteries, they will do well. Yeah, because I went to one of his training courses, and I would be raising my hand, what about this and this and this? And he's like, I'll talk to you later. And then he came up to me later and says, Pete, all the patient has to understand is they need to protect nitric oxide. If they get that, really get that, they'll follow the diet and they'll be successful. He says, if you confuse them with all this other stuff, then they won't know what to do. He says, every mouthful of oil and animal products, including dairy foods, is an assault on your endothelium. These foods produce a cascade of free radicals that induce metabolic injury from which there is only partial recovery. Year after year, the effects accumulate, and eventually the cumulative effect is enough to become obvious and to express itself in what physicians define as a disease. Plants and grains do not induce this deadly cascade of oxidative stress and free radicals. Even better, they contain the antidote in the form of antioxidants which help to neutralize the free radicals. Okay, so that's the scoop with Caldwell Esselstyn. Yeah, and his book is fantastic, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. My internal medicine doctor friends say every patient should read that book. That should be the most popular book. I heard Dr. McDougall say that should be the greatest best-selling book of all time. It tells you what to do, how to prevent coronary artery disease, and that's the most common cause of death. And when you prevent coronary artery disease, you got a very good chance to prevent the other chronic Western diseases, hypertension, diabetes, and markedly reduce your risk of cancer. So that's good advice. And, Esselstyn's still, Energizer Bunny walking around giving lectures at around 90 years of age. So he's got lots of videos online. They're very good. I've made other videos about him, but you just watch some of his lectures. You'll get the point pretty quick.